Hello?
Yeah, this is Henry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, fantastic. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I sure can.
Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, we'll wait a few minutes to see if anyone shows up. We've shared this link, but we'll also record it just because obviously we're a student radio. But thank you so much for agreeing to do this. We really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, and since you're not really a fan of interviews, I feel like it might be a bit better to do this as more of a chat or a conversation. I feel like that relieves some of the pressure and makes them less like artificial and stuff. If that's okay with you. I mean, that saves me having 200 pre-prepared questions and it makes it more, I don't know, valuable, I guess, if that makes sense to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, throughout the whole thing, feel free to ask any questions here and we'll just, I don't know, talk about more normal things rather than asking like the exact same question over and over again. What's your favorite color? What do you think about music? Stuff like that.
No, just ask me anything you want. I'll do my best to answer.
No, thanks so much. Yeah, it's 30, so I think I'm already recording. If I pin you, where can I do that? Pin. And if I pin myself, perfect. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna start recording on that. And we're off. Cool. Thank you so much for joining us, Henry. Thank you for agreeing to do this. For those of you just tuning in, this is our interview and chat with Henry Rollins. Anyone who, I mean, we haven't had anyone on here yet, but anyone who joins will switch off their mics and videos. This will also be recorded, put up on our Mixcloud and YouTube channels. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Henry. How's it going?
Oh, all is well. I have a day off in Munich on a Friday, which is sacrilegious to not be on stage on a weekend. But this is the beginning of a whole bunch of shows. And the first few days are choppy in that there's a show, there's a day off. There's a show, there's 2 days off because some of our locations are a bit hard to get to. But within about a week, it's going to be pretty much a show a night for weeks and weeks and weeks, which is how we like to do it. But I just finished a show in Iceland. It was the first of the year.
Wow.
And I'll finish this leg of the tour like April 7, somewhere in England.
Mm,
And it goes on and off until early August.
wow. You said you like touring like that. I mean, I looked at your tour schedule. It's intense. How'd you manage to do that? It's incredible.
Well, it's a show a night. Uh, and the way, and I do prefer that. I mean, I wish I was somehow, I will be on stage here in Munich soon,
Oh,
just not
wow.
tonight. And
Yeah.
I wish there was something to do tonight except drive. We're going to leave at midnight and drive and drive and drive. But I think we're going to Bratislava. Um, I just like doing a show a night. If I'm out on tour, a night off, you might get a hotel room. Usually it's on the bus
Mm,
and you're driving because it's a distance consideration
yeah.
and it's boring. And so between shows, 6 workouts a week, 1 meal a day. It's a
Wow.
pretty tight leash I keep myself on. It's pretty intense where I'm kind of always angry and hungry all the time. But that's how my road manager and I prefer. We've been touring like this for like 14 years, road manager.
Henry, you still with us?
Then
Cut out for a little
you
bit.
try.
Sorry, I think you cut out for a little bit. That's all right. Yeah, I mean that sounds. I mean, do you ever get exhausted? That sounds wild. Henry?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Oh yeah, sorry. I think the internet's just a bit shit on my end. Do you ever get exhausted from all the touring?
Um, Sometimes exhaustion bites into me. It's usually around the third month mark.
Hmm.
The last year I did 114 shows, and the first leg was March, April, May, part of June. And the last week of shows, I remember sitting on the bus. I live on a tour bus. We
Hmm.
were in Canada, and I was too tired to eat. I literally was too
Wow.
tired to get up and get my plate. My road manager is looking at me, starts laughing. because I was just like staring at this plate of food. I was really hungry. He said, "Are you too tired to get up and get that plate?" I said, "I think I am, because I'm just looking at it and it looks really good." He goes like, "Don't move." He had to like reach over and bring me the plate.
Oh,
And my manager, people like take photos of me and they send them to our management site for some reason. And my manager called me. She goes, "Okay, you look really weird." And I go, "Gee, thanks." She goes, "No, you're not eating enough. You're too skinny,
God.
and you need to start eating more. Like you got, you're too lean."
Mm.
And I had pushed it pretty hard on that tour. Like my pants were falling off.
Wow.
And so I had to up the one meal a day, 6 workouts a week, 7 shows a week thing was getting to be a bit hard. And so I came back from that tour pretty tired. So yeah, I usually come back and I'm underweight and I'm pretty worn out. But I have a pretty good diet, a lot of spinach, and I usually bounce back pretty quickly. But I learned a lesson on that one. I had never restricted my caloric intake so much as on that tour. I was just kind of doing an experiment.
Wow.
So I won't do that again.
That's fair. No, absolutely. And your shows are, as far as I understand, are pretty long as well. I mean, you sometimes talk for 2, 3 hours. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours. I wish it was more like an hour and 50 minutes.
Mhm.
And I take my phone on stage and leave it on with the stopwatch going,
Smart.
not for my benefit, but for the audience's benefit, because you have to let them go home at some point.
Sure.
And and it's a weird line to walk. Like, is your material good and you love your audience so much you don't want to let them go?
Mm.
Or are you just some bloviating blowhard who talks way too long and you're far too garrulous and you need to tighten up your material? That's the balance
Mm.
between, because it can't go too long. And it's not like I'm trying to get away with something,
Mm.
like, do a short show and like get back to my vodka.
Fair.
You have to be really careful, because too much of anything, even if it's the Rolling Stones, it has to end.
Mm.
And so the other night in Iceland, I was on stage for 2 hours and 8 minutes, and I need to tighten that up. It should be about 2 hours.
Mm. Well, I think people appreciate that. I mean, you've got a lot of stories to tell, and honestly, that's why we got you on here. You seem a little bit surprised that we wanted to talk to you, but genuinely, you're one of the most interesting people that we could have spoken to on the show.
Oh, thank you. I mean, many years ago, you have to remember, I have a high school education.
Mm.
I got out of high school in 1979. I graduated, and this is in the United States. I was like 18,
Yeah.
and I went into the minimum wage working world with really no plan, like
Mm.
no plan. Didn't want to be an astronaut, didn't want to be a sailor. I just wanted to have an apartment that I wouldn't get kicked out of.
Sure.
And my future was going to be that. You can get any amount of minimum wage jobs in the United States, and just that's your life. And then I was lucky, and I got to be in a band called Black Flag, and that band did very well. And from that, went into my own band, and then into Hollywood film. And I started writing books that became very successful, and started doing shows by myself, like what I'm doing on this tour. And those became successful. And so I reckon I'm a very lucky person. And the way to not squander that, and the way to not pray the sheer luck of that, is to have a full life, to get up every morning and try to do something really cool.
Mm.
And so before COVID, I was touring and writing and film, TV, writing screenplays, like really, firing on all cylinders. Then if I wasn't on a stage somewhere, I would just travel in an extracurricular manner,
Mm.
all over the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, like places like North Korea, Pakistan,
Yeah.
Antarctica, wherever I could, to try and make my life eventful.
Mm.
And again, this idea of not betraying a gift that was given to me, and to have great material for my amazing audience.
Mm.
And it's great to be able to tell them, like, well, here's what happened when I was in Pyongyang, and have it not be a lie.
Yeah.
COVID really screwed that up.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I'd be working on one of my dumb book projects. And if you're just going to have to sit in front of a laptop for endless amounts of time editing, why not do that in Manila or in Cusco and live in the Peruvian Andes? And this is how I would live. I'd just live all over the world, working on my projects, living in cheap hotels, and using my home as a place to shower, get a new visa, put into my passport, and leave again. And this is an effort to put time and money into an eventful life. And then COVID immediately removed that. Just like in one simple global pandemic, that was over.
Yeah.
And I don't think travel on that scale for me ever comes back. I just don't think I'm ever going to get back to that momentum, because age is definitely a factor. It's, I'm not exactly young. 62 is not 23. Trust me, many years from now, you'll be. But in the years I was off the road, I just concentrated on what I could do from a single fixed location. And that was like radio, writing, voiceover work for animation, like a bunch of cartoons, which is fun. And then finally, the world allowed me to go back into it. And I went back into it with a vengeance.
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, COVID's really screwed up like everyone's touring schedule, and it sounds like you really, really missed that kind of being somewhere else. I mean, being stuck by yourself.
It's conditioning.
Yeah.
I mean, I started being on stage when I was 19. I started touring like intensely, like living in a van for months at a time when I was 20. And it was at first, especially the way I was touring, like, you miss a lot of meals.
Yeah.
And some of the audiences were less than friendly. But it just gets to the point where you realize how much life is out there, where your non-tour life is kind of boring. And then it gets to the point where it's depressing. And that's how I am when I'm off the road. I'm kind of waiting to leave again. And so it's spent going to the gym. I have a 24-hour gym about 2 traffic lights from my house.
Wow.
And I'm in there all the time, sometimes twice a day, because I'm basically conditioning to leave again and having basically something to train for, like something to get ready for, something to serve. You get used to it.
Yeah.
And after, I don't know what, 40 years of doing this, I prefer my backpack and, my tiny little listening system rather than my really nice stereo, which I have at home, and actual vinyl records, which sound really good. And I put on records for the last time the other day, like, well, that's over with until spring.
Yeah.
But once I got to Iceland, I was like, well, I'm in Reykjavik, which is gorgeous, unbelievable. It's like walking through a dream. And the people are incredibly cool. And so I realized I'm finally back, where I should be. The last shows I did last year were in Honolulu, which is, no problem, in November. So I got home, went back into my training, did a lot of editing work for a book coming out this year, and left again. And so this kind of lifestyle where you really choose what you're going to do, it's kind of frightening at times, because you realize I don't really have a boss. There's no one smarter than me going, hey, this is what you're going to do today. So if I'm in charge of my own life, it can all go horribly wrong. And so it's having that much control of your life. At times you're like, wow, I'm driving this jet fighter by myself with no manual. And so it's fun, it's exhilarating, and at times it's a little slightly terrifying in that I don't really have plans all the time for like next year. I have some big plans, but the cart is so in front of the horse at this point. I don't want to mention anything. It's just I'm in
Fair.
year 3 of a massive project I'm working on,
Mm,
and it's a lot of risk, it's a lot of money, and but I think everyone, my team around me, they all say we are going to get this done. And when I do complete it, you will hopefully see the press release and you go, that's what he was talking about.
absolutely.
But that's like yeah, no, it's gonna be amazing. But that's the next big thing. But I've just been having this multi-decade life of just, as I said, trying to keep it eventful, trying to keep it moving,
Mm,
where work is the value.
yeah.
It's not about fame, it's not about money. It's just about work, 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 and trying to get something really good done and having an audience that you keep hopefully with you as long as possible.
No, of course. And I'd say that's worked out pretty well as well. I mean, you're still you're still going. I mean, it's going fantastically. I mean, I've looked at the tour schedule, I've looked at the books you've released, and it all looks fantastic. How do you manage to write so much? I'm intrigued.
Oh, it's work. You literally just sit, you have to sit and just do it
Yeah.
and do it and do it and do it. And so when I was younger, I was, living a very, life. I'm a middle class guy. I mean, I had 2 very hardworking parents. My father was a PhD and a tremendous racist, homophobe, misogynist. So
Mm,
a multitasker.
yeah.
My mom worked for the government, and these are 2 super hardworking, high achievement level people. And I'm the son who never went to college. Um, uh, but I'm living on the road. I was in this band called Black Flag, and I am seeing really crazy things happen, like drug deals going down in front of me, people getting stabbed at shows,
Yeah.
cops running us out of town,
Mm,
where it's a hell of an adventure. And I never thought to write it down until I read the author Henry Miller,
mm,
whose early work is just him in Paris getting drunk, running around like a maniac. I'm certainly not getting drunk, but I understand the maniac
yeah.
part. And I decided, well, I'm gonna write too. And I started writing, and I immediately saw how difficult, how easy he made it. And that was his great genius. He made the very difficult seem very easy. Like, words are very slippery. To get them to line up with a period or question mark, it's alchemy. And so 40 years on, it still evades me trying to get it together. So I started writing in earnest, and it became a place to go every day, to get out frustration and work out a young
Good.
man's loneliness. And at one point, being from the DIY school of things,
Mm,
I said, well, damn it, I'm going to make a book publishing company and I'm going to write books.
yeah.
And my writing turned into books, which almost immediately got this readership where I'm making paperbacks and stowing them in my room and selling them at shows. And then I
Mm,
got an office and I got a staff. I had a manager who said, we got to get you a phone that someone can answer to take orders, and the writing, within a few years, my books are in German, they're in French, they're in Italian and Spanish, and on and on. And so writing at this point is just a discipline. This is like 40 some years of every day I edit by day and write by night. And
mm,
on the tour schedule, I have to compress all that because I'm on stage at
yeah.
night. So I get up in the morning, I work out, I come back to the bus or the hotel or the yurt, wherever I'm staying, and I get to work on my writing projects, and which
Mm,
I will be doing, later today. I got to
wow.
work out, and then I've got writing probably until midnight when bus call, and I'm committed to it. And it bespeaks of a larger discipline of what all of this stuff takes. And pretty much, and I can't speak for you, I wouldn't dare. But anything you going to, or any of your listeners, if you're going to be one of those bastards, it takes a lot of application. At some to where you can be obsessed with it and really give it everything you have. And even if there's no job I can put down unless you're a hitman or a drug dealer. But even those trades, you have to. Well, I'm not speaking from experience, but you have to really apply yourself. And all this DIY stuff that I do, like my own book company, my own record company, music publishing, all this stuff that I have, like all these different companies and people who run them when I'm not in the building. Every day, I'm minding the store, if you will. And it's not about profit. It's not about any of that. It's about you put your name on something. You have made a promise, and now you must show up. And that's kind of what I learned from working. There's a label in the United States called Discord, run by Ian MacKaye, and he was in the band Minor Threat. He was in the band Fugazi.
Of course.
Ian's been my best friend since we were 12. And we are still best friends, two men in their 60s. We are still best friends. So I watched Ian build this incredible independent record label on his mom's kitchen table. I watched SST Records, Black Flag's label. I worked at the label. We all did. I mean, just because we're all hand-to-mouthing it.
Sure.
And so I come from that very vigorous multitasking idea of today I'm going to do mail order, I'm going to generate some press, and I'm going to write the next newsletter. So I'm going to be press guy, I'm going to be mail order guy, and I'm going to be promo dude today.
Yeah.
And I've never done two of those, so I better learn how to fake it real good. And so it's just dedication. And at this point, this is what I live for. And even the workouts, like 6 days a week in a gym, are you kidding? It hurts. But it's what I live for. And without it, I would be very depressed. I mean, I can afford to do nothing. I can afford literally fiscally. I can afford just to sit around and watch the grass grow. That holds no interest to me whatsoever. I'll work until I keel over. It's the only thing that makes me want to makes me want to get up in the morning is the fact that I'll be late if I don't.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of people talk about you mentioned the DIY scene. There's been a lot of discussion on like social media. Is punk, I don't want to say punk music, but is music in general, has it been, how do I say it? Has it become artificial? Has it become corporatized? Like there's a lot of people seem to think that, your involvement in, for example, DIY scenes, that's not real anymore. Like people just, all these modern punk bands, all of these modern alternative bands, they just make stuff for the profit and not for the joy of, like you said, the obsession of doing something and being good at it and continuing to build that. Do you think
I think there might be some bands like that, but and I'm not trying to disagree with you. I'm just saying there's so much music. You can certainly find people and bands who are doing exactly that.
Sure.
But I would counter with I also have a radio show, which takes a lot of time and work, but I'm always looking for new music and not really feeling old. I like a lot of independent music made by a bunch of, upstart 19-year-olds and whatever. I'm old in body, but not in my mind. And I would say, just my opinion, which I think is, it's a pretty good opinion in that I can speak from some experience. I think the independent music scene for at least the last 10 years, I don't think it's been better. I mean, I don't think it's been, because you have so many people not only making their own labels, but making their own records in their own studios. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of a guy named Ty Segall. Ty, he makes a record like every 6 weeks. And he just opened his own studio. He's going to be recording in the spring a great punk band from Georgia. They're called Upchuck. I really, you can find a song of theirs. It's called Boss Up. By Upchuck. They're kind of legends in Atlanta, Georgia, but they're starting to break out. Ty's going to produce their next record in his studio, and their label person told me recently. I'm happy for all of them. Great producer, great studio, insanely cool band. The singer, she's incredible. And like you hear the song Boss Up, you'll get it. Anyway, so many bands are taking the control. They make their own records, they have their own label, they're doing their own thing. They don't care about music television, they don't care about radio.
Yeah.
You can find them on Bandcamp, they're booking their own tours. I'm seeing so much autonomy in independent music now. And I keep in touch with these bands. You know, they're amazed I even know who they are. Like, you know, how did this old man find us? And I put them on my radio show, and I work very closely with a lot of different labels. So they keep me in the loop. And so I think independent music, just my opinion, it's at an all-time high as far as like really interesting music, interesting sounds. And they're totally ignoring the corporate model, and they're embracing Bandcamp and what you can do on the internet and how much music you can make on a laptop. And I think it's great because they don't, they can't tell you what Beyonce sounds like. And actually neither can I. And long may she wave. So I think the independent music scene, it's super independent now. And the further in you want to drill, you can go deeper and deeper into the weeds. And there's like all these noise bands, and they only tour in people's basements. Their tours are house parties. And like, you're going to put the band up. That's the hotel, is your guest room.
Yeah.
And I've slept on a lot of people's floors, and I've put a lot of bands up on the floors of my houses. But these are designated tours where the show's going to be the basement party with a bunch of beer and marijuana. And the pay is going to be some money, dinner, laundry, and enough gasoline money to get to the next show, where it's a non-commercial consideration. And so that's why I try to get these bands on my radio show, because I want these scenes to thrive and not have to submit, because they're doing it for real. And they're really hanging their guts out there to make this happen.
No, yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, we're technically independent. We don't do this for profit. We don't get any money. And I think that it's just so important to get these artists out there. I feel like they're way more interesting than commercial artists. I mean, here's the reason why we're interviewing you. We interviewed Jamie Stewart from the group Shoo Shoo yesterday. Fantastic. And it's just,
Shoo Shoo's great. They and that's another, they really do their own thing. I love those records. And long may that wave. And as an old guy, this is how I try to give back. I've had a radio show for like 20 years. And one of the main objectives is to get the unheard heard. And my audience at this point, I've kind of tenderized them into being very open-minded. You'll be open-minded or else. And you'd probably do your radio show even if you had to pay £10 a week to do it. I mean, you do it for the love of communication, for your appreciation of art, and someone has to maintain culture. If you lose culture, you lose civilization.
Absolutely.
And once you lose your civilization, all bets are off. And I've been in countries, I've been to about 88 or 90 countries. I've been in some environments where there's a Sharia law, where life is incredibly cheap, where you meet young people, you can see the disease in their eyes. They're not getting to 20, and that's because culture has been destroyed, and civilization is up for grabs. And in the Western world, we're nowhere near that, but you can lose it all. And once those pillars, fall over, you're done. And I think a lot of work it's something you maintain. And I am dedicated to being one of the many people who helps maintain it. And it brings me a lot of joy. I get $70 a week to do my radio show on the largest national public radio station in all of Southern California. It pays $72 a week after working there since 2009 with a constant pay upgrade. Like every 2 years, they give you like an extra quarter a week or something. I pay my engineer $50 a week to glue the show together in Pro Tools so we can put it on KCRW.
Yeah.
So I am making about $22 a week to do a radio show that takes hours and hours and hours to make.
Yeah.
So basically, I am paying to have a radio show.
Yeah.
And it costs me thousands of dollars a year to be on the radio, which I've been doing this for years. Who knows how much this show has cost me? And I'm not complaining. I fear the day they finally fire me. They'll get around to it. You never.
Probably not.
But who knows? Everything ends. And so this is one of the ways I try to contribute. And in my life, I have found contribution. That's where you get everything back, is when you give. That's the best present, is the opportunity to give.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I completely agree with that. That's what we're trying to do here. And on the topic of everything ends, I don't want to keep you any longer, but thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this has been incredible. You are one of the best public speakers I've met. And it's been a lot more insightful maybe than you can even realize. And we really appreciate you doing this for us. And we appreciate you doing everything for modern independent music and independent radio. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And I would never dare tell you what to do. But may I gently beg you to please never quit. Just never stop doing this one way or the other.
No, that's important. Sometimes you need to that needs to be taken home. We don't hear that enough. So we can't thank you enough for this.
Yeah, well, hang in there, and maybe I'll see you in several weeks from now on the road.
I definitely hope so. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Okay, see ya.
See ya.